So just kind of a little bit of an intro and a background as far as who we are. So COEO, we are the Council of Outdoor Educators of Ontario. We are also a non-for-profit organization that's volunteer-based, and we are here really to promote safe and high quality of outdoor education for people of all ages, right? And we are managed by a board of directors. And because of COEO, we're really excited that we're able to offer you some webinars today, like the one that you are attending. And as a COEO, we also have membership. So one of the things that we are looking at doing is promoting and offering more webinars and events in the new year in 2021. And make sure that you check out our website and that we have your email. Registering as a membership will give you definitely some perks and advantages for some of these upcoming webinars and events in 2021. And as COEO, we usually offer conferences. We had a fall conference. It had to be virtual, of course, instead of in person. We normally have winter conferences, fall conferences. A little bit different this year with pandemic and restrictions, but we are still very active and we are still here to offer lots of great resources and support for people doing outdoor education. And we do rely on help from our members so that we can continue to offer our resources and our great support for you guys. So on behalf of COEO and myself, I do want to introduce to you our speaker today, and that is Barbara Sheridan. She's going to be the one doing the webinar. So hey, Barb, are you there?
Yep. All right. So I'm going to start sort of with an explanation about the acknowledgement that I offer at the beginning of any of the webinars that I do. I live in Ontario. I don't acknowledge a specific nation because there are a lot of different nations that have traveled through, hunted, used the land for, and I don't want to leave any of the nations out. So I just want to give a general acknowledgement that the different nations were here first and we are using that land. What I've talked about with people who are Anishinaabe specifically, as well as other nations, is in terms of land acknowledgements, that a lot of people are now doing land acknowledgements and they stop at the, okay, this is where I'm at, and it might be time to move to the next step, which is not just talking about where you're at, but also talking about how you're connecting and how you're sort of doing something behind that land acknowledgement. So I wanted to acknowledge my connection to the culture, essentially. So my two children are Anishinaabe. My husband is also Anishinaabe. So that's my personal connection. And professionally, I work out of Springwater Provincial Park, which is run by Beausoleil First Nations. And I work in collaboration with them for my program to do different things within the park. And they are a wonderful addition, and they incorporate a lot of sort of traditional values, teachings, et cetera, et cetera. I wouldn't be able to run the program without them. Within the COEO role, I do a lot of work within making sure presentations are appropriate, working with different educators on how to present knowledge that is from an Aboriginal perspective or an Indigenous perspective in a way that is appropriate and not seen as culturally appropriative or talking over. So we do a lot of not talking about us without us and different things like that. So I invite anybody who wants to do some type of acknowledgement to talk about their connection to the culture, and even if it's just from the basics of finding out the local nation around you, all the way up to the different ways that you connect. So you can do that in chat. If you like. We won't have time for everybody to do it because we do have quite a few people here, but if you want to do that in chat, that is fine. All right, so I'm going to get started. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so we are doing engaging learners online. So just a little bit about me. I actually don't like talking too much about me, but I have been told essentially that I should be explaining who I am and what my background is so you understand who I am and what I am talking about. So I'm founder and lead facilitator of Barrie Forest and Natural Learning School. We run a forest kindergarten and natural learning programs. I also do virtual nature facilitation for homeschool families, and online nature-based and inquired project-based learning programs. I'm also a blogger for Playvolution, Explorations Early Learning, and 30-Second Mom. I'm a member of the FSA, which is the Forest School Association, and the Council of Outdoor Educators of Ontario. I have a BA from Trent University, and I'm, yay, in the home stretch of completing my master's. I'm just working on my special project right now, and that's from Cape Breton University. So that's my Master's of Education in Sustainability, Innovation, and Creativity. It's a big mouthful, but essentially what it means is approaching education from a sustainable perspective, so that you're looking at education as more than just a input out, input in, but looking at it more like a sustainable way of learning, organic way of learning. My online creds, administrator of a forest homeschool group based out of North America, and I'm also a forest school support group administrator based out of the UK. So I do different education consulting for teachers, field trips when they're able to run, and different workshops. So the first thing I just wanted to cover is what this webinar is not. So we're not going to be, every board's different, so I'll explain why that's not this. Every board is different, and even some schools are different, and they have different requirements about the tech that's used, about exactly, you know, the website you're supposed to use, you're not supposed to use. So I didn't really want to get into that in case I talked too much about one thing and people are like, well, we can't use that. I'm not going to talk about cool websites because, again, some boards allow it, some boards don't. Not going to talk about the technical aspects because I'm honestly not too much of a technical person, or online tools to use because, again, some are allowed, some aren't. So I wanted to talk more about just engaging the actual learners with processes rather than websites and things like that. So what this website is, or what this webinar is, we're going to try and follow the general structure of the 3 hours of synchronized learning. So this is for the teachers out there. Generally, I think most of the teachers have to do 3 hours of synchronized learning within the school. So I'm going to talk a bit about that when I get into some specifics about the types of learning, but you can, of course, modify that. Myself, I do some different classes. So some are just in class, and then some are 2 hours, so 2 separate hours of synchronous learning. I'm going to talk about how to engage learners better online so that they're more engaged. We're going to talk about different levels of accessibility to nature and how to facilitate that. And we're going to talk about how to connect students to nature, or the idea of nature, no matter what their accessibility is. Because especially right now when we are in lockdown, that could look very different for a lot of students. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is yourself. So the old adage of, if the oxygen comes down, then you need to feed yourself. You need to put that oxygen on yourself. It's very important when you're doing that within your teaching as well. So this is going to be looking very different. So some people are coming to this having done virtual learning since September, and they're in the midst of it. Some teachers are looking at just doing this for the next week or two. And so they're just looking for some tips and tricks. So they're not going to be investing as much time and energy into their space and their routine. And some of them have just flipped over and are looking at starting sort of a general routine. So it's going to be different for how long you're looking at being online, and how long you're looking both from here on out, and how long you've been online. So the first thing is to feed yourself before your student. So make sure that you're starting the day and you're settled and you're happy. So some good ideas for doing that is think about your routine if you were actually leaving the house. I talk about this because my mom was actually a grade 1 teacher for most of her career. And what she always talked about was her time to sort of transition from home to school was her commute to the school. So she would either get in the car or walk. We live close to the school. So she would either get in her car or walk to the school. And that was her time to sort of decompress, leave the stuff from family at home, and start thinking about school. And then the same with after school, is she would leave sort of the school and then decompress, leave that there, and then go home. So they've talked a lot about that commute and how it affects it. And they've come up with what's called a fake commute. So you can look at possibly doing that if that's your routine, to sort of keep you in that routine, to keep that self-care, where you can actually follow your normal routine. So if you normally leave the house, go get a coffee and go to work, you can leave the house, go get your coffee, and then just come back to your house. And then that way you're feeling like you have more of a commute than just sort of those 3 steps down the hallway. Most teachers spend a lot of time on their classrooms. The one nice thing about the virtual classroom is it's more teacher-centered than it is student-centered. So when you are in your classroom, you have to think a lot about the students and putting the work up and what's accessible to the students. Being at home, they don't have physical access. So you can think a lot about what do you need in your classroom, your virtual classroom at home. So around me, you can see I have up in the corner, that's a little piece of my son's artwork. Over on this side, I have, actually that's my bouquet that I got married with, so that's very special to me. And then I have some different books and things over here. So that's the stuff you can see in the classroom, but I also have a picture of what the other side of my classroom is. So you can see from about here, if you can see where my mouse is, you can see from about here over in the actual classroom, which is about here, but all of this stuff is not accessible to the students. And so this is all my stuff. So I have over here, I have books that are mine. So these are the inquiry, the project-based stuff. Here I have just my nice little Zen cards, which if I'm having a tough day, I'll pick them up to remind myself it's not a big deal. I keep my drink here. And then this area over here is actually for my kids. I've homeschooled them since they were born. I run a school, so they come with me to the school. And then any work that I do at home, I do when they're here. And so I actually have a space. A lot of people say, well, what do I do with my kids while I'm teaching? I actually have a space, because at this point they know when mommy's teaching, you got to be quiet, where they can kind of quietly come in and be with me and read a book or do some homework over in this space, which is just over there and off screen. So nobody is the wiser, and yet they still get that connection to me. As well as making sure your space is good, also make sure that you're scheduling in time for you. So, you know, there's a lot of time teachers talk about doing the lunch break, but they're working over lunch break. And, you know, always making sure, because before it was as easy as going down to the staff room or connecting with the other teachers that if you're at an outdoor center or the other people at the center. But now, because you're home alone, you have to definitely take time to schedule in time for you, walk away from the computer, you know, sit down, have coffee breaks, schedule in time to connect with people in the house away from the computer. And then that will all work on your mental health. All right, so we're gonna do breakout rooms now. So I saw a lot of people who are actually in the session, which is good, are part of outdoor programs, because we're gonna get a little bit into how to, I don't wanna use the word replicate, because as we all know, you can't really replicate, but at least include some of the benefits of outdoor learning in the virtual learning in a more compatible way than just sitting and doing instruction to a computer to students that are there. So what I want everybody to do is go into breakout rooms, and I want everybody to come up with 5 benefits of the outdoor learning. But I want to push you a little bit and get you to say why they are benefits. So for instance, you can say the classes run a little bit smoother. Well, why? Because we're outdoors and it's more relaxing to be outdoors. So I'm gonna get everybody to do that. And then when we come back for the next slide, I'm going to deal a little bit with the outdoor indoor, and then we'll get into what your answers were to try and talk about how to sort of incorporate that in your actual outdoor learning. So we just discussed the benefits of the outdoors and why they are beneficial to our learners. So we will get into that in a minute. I just wanted to do sort of an introduction of some different ways you can incorporate the outdoor indoors, because right now there's a lot of people who have various access levels, especially because with Ontario being in lockdown, you know, if somebody has a backyard, they can go play for extended periods outside, but if they don't have a backyard, or if their parents are working during the day, then they may have to stay in their house or in their apartment and not have access while you're working with them. Some people can go for a walk, but they can't stay out for extended time. So we kind of have to consider all of that when we're setting up our planning, because we want to make sure that we hit everybody. And we're able to sort of connect everybody to the outdoors, no matter what level they're actually at. So you wanted, what I do is I set it up so I have 3 different ways of doing it. So there's inside, outside, and walk only. So I'll give you an example of one of the things that I did to show you how that's sort of structured. We were doing 1 week where we were doing stories. Oh, just a minute, I just realized my computer got unplugged. 2 seconds. All right, now I'll last. Okay, sorry about that, all the tech issues. So yeah, so the inside outside that I do is I have one thing where 1 week we did stories. So what we did for incorporating stories outside and inside was the first day that we did the stories. They had to do a picture of a story prompt. And so for the people who were inside, they could use whatever materials that they had from around the house and set up a story. And they had, what we did for that particular story was they had to set up 5 different frames of a story. So beginning, and then a little bit about the beginning, the middle, the apex, and then the end of the story. And so they had to set it up with the different toys inside the house. If they were able to go for a walk only, then the suggestion that I made was to be able to go outside for the walk and gather materials. Whoops, let me just go back here. There we go. All right, hopefully that'll be all the tech difficulties for the webinar. So yeah, so then they could go outside and go for a walk and gather materials and sort of get inspiration from anything they found on their walk, whether it be leaves or pine cones, to incorporate into their actual story. And for the people who could go outside and actually play in nature, what I did was I set up the inquiry so that they basically built their story in nature. So they had, you know, they used the different things like logs or trees and put little characters on it to build the actual story. Another way you can keep kids connected to the outdoors is actually bringing your computer to nature. So this is a picture here of me. I'm actually at my forest kindergarten here doing the virtual forest or virtual nature school. And so I brought the computer to it. It sort of provides that connection so they can see you in nature and they're at least experiencing that part of it. We did a airplane inquiry where they were looking at wind and wind resistance. And so part of that was building paper airplanes. And one of the children that did the inquiry built his airplane and then went outside and he was flying his airplane outside and we were doing testing and measuring, all with him being out in the backyard. So it really provides that connection both for him and for the other people as well. And then bringing nature to the computer is also very important. So I'm just going to stop the share for a minute so I can show you a little bit of how I do that here. So I have, these are my sticks and I also have a feather in there. So I always keep this by the computer because you can do a million things with sticks. So, and I also have another good tool to use with sticks, if you have sticks, is instead of rope, you have pipe cleaners. Because rope, you can actually have, you know, like they'll be tying and stuff, which is difficult to facilitate if you're on the computer. But it's much easier to use the pipe cleaners to wrap around to build projects. So I've had kids doing lots of different projects just using the pipe cleaners, being able to wrap around. And actually, I had one kid who was able to do, because I was showing them how to sort of wrap the pipe cleaner, and he just goes, oh, look what I did. And he wrapped the whole thing around and then pushed it out. Wow, that's amazing. It's like they know so much more than you. So you give them materials, they figure it out, and you just make sure you're incorporating that. I also have a pine cone here, different shells as well. So I have lots and lots of nature around the actual computer. So I bring nature here. And then we'll also talk about inquiries of things to bring to the computer. And again, we want to do that structuring for the kids who don't have access to nature. So I try to give advance warning to the parents. So that, for instance, with the sticks, when we were building with sticks, some of the kids, I work with kids all over North America. And so some of them were in complete lockdown. So what they did was they bought popsicle sticks because they couldn't get out into a wooded area. So they used popsicle sticks instead. So just basically giving them lots of advance notice and incorporating as much natural material as, you know, like this is the standard, but these are sort of the adaptations that we can use instead. All right. So be intentional about about recreating the benefits of nature. So there's a lot of stuff just being in nature that you sort of don't have to think about, which is sort of what I wanted people to talk about when they were in their group. That you can't necessarily recreate the actual experience of being outside, but you can recreate the benefits so that you can at least have an environment that's the same as being outside. So I wanted people, if you guys had a recorder, or even if you just wanted to jump into chat and just write in chat what some of the benefits you found were for being outside. And I'm going to take some of those on the spot, so hopefully I do well with that. And just talk about ways that you can actually recreate that in a different way within the classroom, so you can at least create the same environment.
Barb, if some of us are more comfortable using our voices, are you okay with that?
Oh yes, yes, for sure. I was just saying chat because a lot of people like to write in chat. But yes, if you want to put your hand up and say it, then I would actually like that better, but I understand if you want to use chat. So what did you, oh, there's somebody there. All right, perfect. So we've started. So I'll start with the first one and then keep going as they get in there. So free movement, happiness and positive mental health. So free movement, that's a really good one. So basically don't like, with free movement, you're thinking about outdoors, and essentially they have all the space to move, and they're able to kind of go and do, and you're able to say, okay, and allow them that freedom. So try to replicate that online by doing the same thing. So when you're outside and you're allowing that free movement, you have trust with the student, and you also have to have the same trust when in the virtual environment, essentially, that they're going to come back. So I've done things like scavenger hunts. I've done, and you can again incorporate nature, like go find something that's green with nature in your house, and I had one kid come back with like a plant that was this big, right? It's like, oh, does your mom know you grabbed that? So yeah, so doing lots of different activities where they can run out and come back. And so that sort of gives them that freedom, that sense of independence that they get from that free movement. And they're able to have that sort of break of going out and coming back. Because some of the kids, I mean, who really does well sitting in front of Zoom for 4 hours anyways, but some of the kids definitely need it more. So I also do shorter sessions because I work with kids as young as 3, and usually with the 3-year-olds, I'll do shorter sessions with them. So I'll say to the parent, okay, like my class is 45 minutes, but they can take it for 20 minutes and then go off and do something and then come back. That's fine. I don't have any restrictions around they have to stay by the computer. It's whatever works for them. If they need more movement than sitting in front of the computer, allowing that sort of free movement and independence. All right. Oh, lots of good ones. So now I got to go back up, I think. Okay. Self-regulation, calmer, less stressed kids. So stress is another good one. So this is a good place to sort of incorporate those breakout activities, that conversation, that sort of less stressful environment. Like, stress is usually induced by expectations. Like, I want you to do this right now. And then the kids are like, so think about that, of building in, maybe 5 to 10 minutes or even 20 minutes of chatting at the beginning. What we usually do, which also serves as a connection to nature, is we talk about the weather, and for me, it's fabulous because I have kids from all over North America. So one week I had kids who were down in the Caymans and they had tornadoes or almost tornadoes. And so it was great to hear about their weather, and they would share their weather, and it sort of created this connection to the nature, but it also created this ability to be calmer and less stressed because it's stuff that they can talk about, it's stuff that they're connected to, and it's not like this huge expectation. As well, the opposite, where I've had kids, I have no expectations about if they're going to participate or not. So I have one of my guys who never wanted to ever participate. So I would just acknowledge him and be like, oh, there you are again, okay, if you want to say what your weather is, then that's fine. And I give him a minute, like a couple seconds. Okay, it looks like maybe you're wanting to wait either for later, for another day, and that's fine. So sort of allowing that space for them, even though you can't be outside, allowing that space sort of in your teaching and in your relationship can help recreate that. Positive changes in behavior. Yes, so the positive changes in the behavior. So that was Linda. I have a question for you then, Linda. So what why are they having a positive change in their behavior? What is it about the outside? Linda, I think that's Linda Whiteside.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay.
So I'm an outdoor ed, so we have teachers that come with students that may have difficulty inside the classroom, just with trying to focus on their work and so on. And I don't know that child before they get there, but the teachers often comment on how different they are when they're outside and hands-on, just being outside as opposed to having four walls around them.
Yes. All right. So I know exactly what you're talking about now. Yeah. Actually, I have a story that's very, very, because I do the field trip. So I have the same experience where I have them come in. And there was one little girl who was at the front, because I usually divide into 3 groups and the teachers with 1 group. So I went back and I said, because this little girl, they were building a bridge, and she was saying, okay, you go do that, and they'd have problems, and they're like, what do we do? And she's like, oh, try this and do that. So I went to the back and I said, oh, there's this girl at the front, and I described what she was wearing, and she says, oh no, what'd she do? And I was like, no, it's the opposite. You know, she's fabulous, she's in her element. And so that's exactly the reason that they do well, is because you kind of turn that on their head and you say, okay, they don't do well with this type of environment, but they do well when they're not in that type of environment. So think about how you can change your virtual learning to benefit them. So if they're not good with direct teaching, but they're very good with giving them a problem, like that's this particular child. Here's a problem, you need to solve it. I'm not giving you any direction. And that's what she did well with. So go back to thinking about, you know, like it's outside, it just happens, you know, and it's great because I mean, when I'm at the forest and nature school, it's just like you just have the kids there and so much just happens because you're outside. So when you're coming into virtual nature, you have to do a little bit more intentional teaching, and you have to think about, okay, why does that work, and then try to recreate that with your teaching. So it is more difficult, and you do have to do more reflection on the specifics of what's working for that child, but do exactly that. Say, okay, this isn't working for this child. I know that they do well with problem solving, so then work from there. And I mean, I know a lot of outdoor educators on here, yay, like me, are either private or working for outdoor ed centers or for provincial parks, so you don't have to necessarily worry about meeting specific guidelines. And so you can recreate that if you're doing online programs, because you don't have to worry about doing the check mark of, you know, I need to have these done by the end of the day. It's like, okay, what I need to do is create this environment for these children where they're thriving. And so you can actually do that much easier. All right. Safety outside. Oh, so there we go. There's a good one. Stress relief, connection, calm, adaptability. Okay, so we talked about the other one. So safety. So are you talking, so that's Tina. So are you talking in particular being able to do risk assessment?
The discussion on that topic was in connection to some of us being at centers where we're able to go outside with classes, and the outdoor fresh air and open space being a safer environment in connection to these COVID times than an enclosed classroom space.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, so basically what I would do in that particular case is, obviously that's not recreatable in our environment because we are in COVID times, you know, going out. I mean, even the pandemic aside, going out is a whole new stressful time because, you know, you have to follow rules, and I don't know how many times I've gotten lost in stores following those lines, and it's just, everything has changed and everything is different. So what I would do is, instead of saying, okay, you know, like we can't create this environment, so what we say is we acknowledge that it's here and let's talk about this. Allow that space, you know, for the kids to talk about it and have that environment where at least they can process it a little bit and talk about it. And then once we get back out and things are much calmer and much more able to be there, and then as well, you can also create what I call a little bubble. So a little bubble is sort of that time and space of, okay, we are all at our houses right now, we don't have to negotiate outside, so let's have a safe space in this classroom and be able to listen to each other and acknowledge everybody's voice and acknowledge everybody's contribution, so that at least in this environment, they're feeling that little bit of safety and that little bit of, okay, people are listening to me and I'm okay, at least for the next hour or two if they're stressed. So doing sort of a combination of both, we might not be able to recreate that sort of more relaxed environment, but at least we can acknowledge that it's here and create that sort of safe space. Okay, better balance, coordination, Ooh, greater sense of wonder. Less I'm bored. Okay, so better balance and coordination. So again, you can actually do physical stuff. I'm not a dance teacher or a physical sort of person able to do a lot of physical stuff online. However, I know people who are dance teachers. I know people who do a lot of very physical things. I know that there's like different karate and things like that that are physical. So you can try and change it up and replicate that as much as possible. So you can get them to get a rope and put it across their living room, and then they have to do the tightrope. So any of those sort of physical stuff, you can adapt a little bit for indoors. And again, we're thinking it is much better outdoors, of course, but at least this is sort of a balance of saying, okay, if they're learning balance and coordination, what activities can we bring inside that will also facilitate that? And how can we adapt activities that necessarily can't be brought inside? The less I'm bored or resistance to doing the activity, I'm actually going to talk about a little bit later, actually the next slide, because we're going to be talking about intrinsic versus extrinsic, because I'm bored usually comes a lot from activities where it's extrinsic, where it's like, okay, I need some stimulation from outside because I don't have enough internal. So we're going to talk about that in the next slide. All right, sense of connection with things in nature. So yes, again, if we follow a lot of the stuff that I was talking about before, about connecting with nature, bringing nature inside, you bringing it outside, even doing that weather, again, not replicatable to what's outside. It's so easy outside, you just go, you connect, but at least that's some type of connection where they can start that and then go from their imagination there. All right. Safety as in safety outside. Okay, so with fresh air rather, yeah, okay, so that's sort of close to that. All right, so that is this part. So I'm going to share the screen and we will go to the next one. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about intrinsic motivation, internal or external. So we're going to do a real quick breakout room because we only have 10 minutes left. And so maybe what we'll do is I'll get people to do this breakout. And we'll actually take it to the group tomorrow, maybe. I'll be able to come onto the group tomorrow, the COEO group, and we can talk about some of these. So if you guys go into your breakout rooms, I want you basically to look at the tasks that you are currently doing with your students or plan to do, and look at if they are internally motivated or externally motivated. So I had said 5, but since we only have 10 minutes left, maybe come up with 2. And talk about if they are internal or externally motivated. And then we'll come back in 5 minutes and wrap up.
Okay, I've sent out our invites. Have a good conversation.
I'm just going to mention quick, because we only have 5 minutes left, I am going to wrap up the internal, external motivation stuff by 1. I do have some bonus content, and so I'm going to stay after 1 for anybody who can stay after 1 about inquiry and project or problem-based learning. So if you are available to stay after 1 and you want to hear that, then you can do that or ask questions. For anybody who has to leave at 1 and who does have questions, I'm going to be in the group, the COEO group tomorrow at noon. So I will be monitoring that. I might even put a thread up saying if you had any questions, and then I can answer any questions there as well. All right, so I'm going to quickly go back to the screen. All right, so everybody here talked about internal, external motivation, and talked about what you're doing online and if it's internal. Now, as most of you know, being outdoors, a lot of the learning is internal motivation. So you don't really have to think too much about the internal motivation. It's either all internal motivation or most of it is internal motivation because they want to go out, they want to explore. So when you're doing things online, because the outdoors is taken away from that, you want to make a concerted effort to think about including that internal motivation in whatever activity that you are actually doing with them. So you can incorporate internal motivation as part or all of the activity. So some ways you can do that is the topic. So in my nature school, the kids pick the topic all the time, which is lots of fun for me because I'm researching everything and anything, because they say we want to learn about tornadoes. So I have to go research tornadoes and research things that they can do to learn about tornadoes. Freedom in what they do. So for instance, when we're doing our stuff, when I was talking about the story, what they did is they had freedom in how the output of the story was. So when we got to the end of the week, they had several options depending upon what they wanted to do. They could do a comic book, they could do a written story, they could do a picture book. And there was even one kid who loves Minecraft, and what he did was he did a Minecraft story, and then he took screenshots of it and put little comic book bubbles to tell the story. And that was, for all the kids, that's very internally motivating because it's something that interests them. So just sort of saying this is the output that I want, but letting them decide how to do it, you can increase that internal motivation. Doing self-assessments. If they're deciding what it is that they're going to be assessing themselves on, that'll increase their ability of their internal motivation, because they're the ones that are setting the goals for themselves, and it's goals that they want to meet and that they think are achievable. Now, sometimes you have to facilitate because it might not be achievable, so you may have to break it down a little bit to make it achievable, but it's something that they want to do and accomplish. You can look at doing collaborative projects where they contribute their passion to the actual project. So I had one class where they wanted to make a book, and there was a kid who was really good at art, so he did the pictures. There was a kid who loved the storytelling, so he did the storytelling. There was another kid who wanted nothing to do with pretend stories, but he was very factual. So he actually was able to do a little blurb on each of the students who contributed, and did a little bio for each of them. So each of them were able to contribute to the full collaborative project in a way that interested them. And then including activities that bring the benefit of outdoor learning. So the activities that we talked about before, by including those sort of things in the classroom, that increases their buy-in or their internal motivation, because they feel like this is a place where they can be relaxed, where they're accepted, and where they have sort of a back and forth with nature and something that they understand and something that they can do. So by including those benefits of outdoor learning with those different activities, you're actually increasing their internal motivation. So it is 1 o'clock now, so if anybody has to go, that's fine, you guys can go, and then I'll move on to the next part. And like I said, we might go 5 minutes over and then possibly have a question period after that. All right, so kindergarten and early elementary. So we're looking at inquiry learning for that. So I've given some examples, and this is again based on that 3-hour synchronous learning of ways that you can do that. So you can set up an inquiry each day based on their interests. So kindergarten is set up essentially to do exactly this within the classroom, and you can replicate that somewhat online. So the first way is, the first hour is talking about what they want to discover. So you can literally just show up every day and say, okay, what do you guys want to learn about? And they say, oh, we want to learn about wind. So it's like, okay, well, what are we going to learn about wind? What are you curious about? And talk to them, and then they can go out and sort of explore the ideas that they talked about, while you're actually looking stuff up online to do with the subjects that they're talking about. And then you meet back for your next hour, and then that's where you can have a little bit of a lesson about what it is they talked about in the morning. They can come back and talk about what they found, and then you can extend their learning. So you say, okay, so you guys did all of this morning, so based on the information I presented you, let's do this inquiry or this project. Go out and make a snowman and see how tall you can get it, or build the blocks up and see how tall you can get it if you're looking at measurement or things like that. And then a second way you can do it is if you're more structured than that and you sort of need something to go on. I'm more of a first way person, but a lot of people need to have sort of a layout at the beginning of the day so they know where we're going. So again, teachers need to do what they're comfortable with. So you can actually decide the day before what they want to cover. You can research it during your planning time, and then have a lesson in the morning with that actual task to do, so they can go do the actual task. And then they can come back during the second hour. They can report back what their findings were. And then you can give a task to stretch it even further. So you can do sort of a two-part inquiry. So break it down into steps so that it's more manageable. And then for upper elementary and up, you can look at doing project-based learning. So there's two different types of project-based learning. The one is project-based learning, which is actual exploratory. There's project and problem-based learning. So you start with a problem, and it's very open and exploratory. So basically, as a teacher, when you're starting this, you have no idea where it's going to go. So outdoor educators are usually very good at this. Present the materials, let's see what happens, and then facilitate from there. Project learning is more closed with the instruction. And so there might be a step-by-step, there might be an assessment, there might be certain expectations that are set up, but at least it's projects. Like I said, you can get that buy-in with the internal by them setting what the topic is or what the result is, and then the teacher can do a much more structured way of doing the project. So PBL, of course, is more internally motivating because the student has to decide things themselves. And so because it's coming from them, they're more internally motivated to do it. But again, as I said before, it has to be doable by the teacher to be effective. So if you think that that's too open for you, I would do something that's more project learning so that it's more structured, so that it's something that the students will benefit from, but you still feel you have control of. So project-based learning, the student picks a topic and the teacher is a project manager, helping the student come up with goals and a timetable and a self-evaluation. So you can take one of your hours during the day to do project management. So you can do like a little check-in with each student of 5 to 10 minutes. So where are you with your project? What are you doing with it? What's your next step? What's your goal? Just to make sure that they're on goal. If they've come across any problems, you can problem solve with them to try and figure out how to work around the actual problem. And then students can also spend the rest of the hour working on their project. I do something called Genius Hour, which was actually started by Google, believe it or not. So Google found that if they gave their people who worked at Google just an hour to do whatever they wanted, they come up with these phenomenal, innovative ways of creating things. So I think Gmail was actually started during a Genius Hour. I think Google Maps, either all or part of Google Maps, was started during Genius Hour. So different things have been done during that Genius Hour because they're following their actual passions. And so they can take that hour when they're not having the check-in and spend that time with the teacher doing the project. Project learning, like I said, the teacher can set the topic or direction, but students are doing the actual project. Teacher, student can come up with the timeline and evaluation, and project management consists against checking against these goals. So like I said, it's just more teacher-directed goals. But if that's more manageable, at least the students have a topic or some type of investment in the actual project. So process-based, you have to look at the projects like they're process-based. So a lot of the feedback that I'm hearing from teachers is that they are needing to do marking against a certain schema and meet, like they have to know these things to be able to move on. But they're doing a lot of old methodologies, things like tests, things like worksheets, and it's not easily doable by themselves. And so basically what's happening is they're not getting good grades. So if you can sort of put it over and say, okay, I'm going to get rid of the tests and I'm just going to make sure that they can apply this. So this is our tornado. And so what we did was I basically gave the materials to them, and they couldn't figure out how to put it together at the beginning. So we looked up a video and we watched a video on it. Once they saw how to put it together, then they were able to watch it go around. And then what we did was we measured, depending upon how they were spinning it, what happened to the actual tornado, if it was bigger, if it was smaller. And because there was investment in it, the kids wanted to do it because they were interested in tornadoes. So we were able to incorporate math in a sort of a non-typical way. And they were doing measuring, they were doing non-typical measuring, they were doing charting, they were doing graphing. And so being able to sort of include those things, and some of them needed more walkthrough, so I would actually sit there with them and do the walkthrough. Some of them were able to do it on their own and come up with that. All right, so I'll finish off with tips and tricks. So one of the things, adjust to what they can do. So flexibility is, I think, the key to virtual learning. So allow students who need more teacher help or supervision to work mainly during in-class hours. So some students, their parents are also working at the same time, so their parents can't take the time to help them. So always make sure that you're setting up something so that they're able to work just with you in class if they can't take that time outside of class. So you might have to modify a little bit. Have alternatives for everything to adjust for the ability to collect materials and socioeconomic status. So again, this is what I was talking about before, where I was telling the parents, okay, so for people who can't get out, you can use popsicle sticks. So I was varying the material based on how much they could get out. The tornado one, the one that you just saw, my alternative was actually for, because I do have a couple kids who are lower socioeconomic status. And so some of them, I used a pop bottle with duct tape for that, because you can do that as well. And then some of them, it was just literally because they couldn't have a lot of parent help. They had a glass with a spoon, and then they just made the tornado with the glass and the spoon. So thinking about those alternatives and how you can achieve the same goal with more or less parent help and more or less actual materials. So focus on successes. Even if things don't get done exactly how you would in class or outside, focus on what did get done, what was learned, and the progress that was made. So we really have to look at learning differently now. I mean, sometimes just showing up for class is progress for some of the kids. Like, yay, they were there. They didn't ignore me all day and not come to class. And so just actually being there and being able to engage with the students in a way that works for them is also very important to acknowledge and get that buy-in. So be flexible in how you grade. So now is the time for teachers to look up alternative grading schemes for students who are not doing well in class. When you're in a typical classroom, grading scheme is you do tests, you do projects which are guided by the teacher, and all of those, there are certain segments of kids who do well, who are still doing well with that. But there are a certain segment of kids who don't do well with that. And because they don't have the teacher right there with them, they're not going to do well with that. So now is the time to look at what works with these kids. How can I grade them differently? We'll leave those kids with their tests, with their grades, with their projects, but how can I change it up so that these kids can get assessed properly and I can make sure that they're learning without having to do the grading and without having to do the projects. All right. So that is the presentation. Is there any other questions? Is there questions in chat? I sort of missed it, so.
We didn't have any questions in chat. We did have, Jennifer was just talking about the Google Genius Hour that you can tour in Kitchener, and it's a pretty inspiring experience.
Ooh, I might go do that.
It's there's a group of educators that after hours they set up once a month. They have like a teacher meetup thing or an educator meetup.
Oh.
And they start so usually there's a tour before the official meeting starts, and it's all of that inquiry-based, problem-based learning, and their whole structure is like that, and it's really cool. So if you get a chance, do it, but you might need to either be part of that group or know a person who knows a person.
I might know a person. I know somebody who works for
Hey, there you go.
I will have to see. Wow, yeah, that'd be really interesting because I do run my own Google or my own Genius Hour program, so I would love to be able to participate in something like that. That's amazing. All right. Yeah, okay, so we were just talking about that. So is there any questions or follow-up or questions about internal, external from your conversations about how to make something that is external more internal? No? Okay. Well,
yeah, Carolyn's got a question there, Barb. I don't know if you can see it in the chat.
Oh, there we go. Oh, okay. So inquiry into, that's actually a really easy one. Math is so easy to incorporate into inquiry learning because essentially, so do you have like a specific example of the type? Okay, so this is data management. So data management is perfect because inquiry, if they're wondering about something, all you have to do is track changes in whatever it is they're wondering about. So we built weather stations in my nature school. And so we had of course the 3 different variations of it. So for the kids who had a backyard, they built nature stations and put them outside. So for the kids who could go for a walk, they got materials to decorate their nature stations. Some of them had balconies so they could put them out on the balcony. And then some of them had to do it indoors. So what they did was they replicated based on the weather forecast, whether there was rain or no rain. And then that one we also, because that one was a week-long inquiry. So they actually, the ones that did it inside started changing theirs based on the outside ones because some of them it didn't rain for a few days, so it evaporated. So they were tracking every day how much water was in their container, and they would write it down. And then so they would see that it would evaporated, and so then the people inside were like, "Oh, it evaporates? Okay, well tomorrow I better get rid of some of my water because it didn't rain." So then they get rid of some of their water. So they tracked it, and you can make it shorter or longer. We just did it for a 1 week because our inquiries are generally a week. And then so they're doing the data management, and then at the end of the week they got to decide how they wanted to display their data management. So some of them did graphs, some of them made stories where they talked about the data and what happened with the data. And I had one kid who just made this fabulous story about this little boy who hated the rain, and so on this day he went out, but on this day he went in and talked about all of that. So, you know, and again, thinking sort of outside the box in terms of that data management and how they're displaying it also increases that internal motivation. Oh, my favorite books. Well, of course, there's the old one. I've got all of them here. See, all of my favorite stuff is in my classroom. So let's see. Of course, the best one, of course, the Gruffalo. We love the Gruffalo. Let's see. Oh, well, this one's a general inquiry one. So this one is a really good one, which is what do you do with an idea? I have my little idea guy here. That's how much I love the book. So so you can see on there, that's your idea. So it talks about ideas and following ideas and what happens when other people poo-poo your idea and being able to follow through. So that's a really good one. And then this is the project-based learning one and problem-based. So what do you do with a problem? So it's very similar in talking about that. But let's see, in terms of like a lot of the books, this is a really good series because it really, it's funny and it engages the kids, and it's about wonderful icky things. So they love it. So there's a whole series. There's one that I haven't been able to actually read myself called Lice. So that, yeah, I have not brought myself to be able to, we own it, but I have not read it yet. But they have like lots of little icky things. So there is that one. And then, you know, and then of course you can't go wrong with Munch, you know, like he's got all the wonderful books that are silly and funny and the questions that come out of it and the kids playing. Like they hear the books, they read the books, and then they act out the stories, and then so many inquiries come out of that too. So it's fabulous. So yeah, so those are some of my favorites, just a few that are right there. All right. Okay, so any other questions, thoughts? All right, well, like I said, I plan to be on the group tomorrow just for anybody who had to go. And anybody who had any further questions. So I will be there tomorrow just to monitor if people ask. I know we may have missed a few people just because of an accidental email error. So hopefully we'll pick some of those up tomorrow. And then, yeah, so I will be on there for that for sure. So, okay.
And Barb, can you just remind us what group you're referring to?
Oh, the COEO group, that's right. Okay, so the COEO group, so it's the Facebook group. There's two we have a page and a group. So I'll be in the group just so that it's more interactive because other people will be able to post so if they have a particular question. So it's Council of Outdoor Educators of Ontario. So that's the Facebook group. As well, this is sort of the start of a webinar series. So this one was free and open because we want to try and get people understanding about it. But we encourage you to sign up for our membership so we can keep offering these sort of websites to help educators and outdoor educators, even though these times are a little strange, but they can keep learning and doing, and we can keep advocating for everything that's going on in the world today. And also we're discussing some special bonuses that if you sign up as a COEO member, you may get. So that will be coming out in January. So stay tuned and we will have some special bonuses for anybody that signs up.
All right. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Barb. That has been great. So awesome webinar, lots of great discussions. Love the breakout rooms too. So I know we had some good discussions as well. And as Barb mentioned, definitely check out our Facebook group. You can also join up for the Facebook page. And don't forget to take a look at our website if you haven't done so already. There's a list of great resources available on our website. And stay tuned, 2021, we do have lots of things up our sleeve and planned. And if you have any thoughts or ideas, maybe webinars or topics that you would like to see in the future, feel free to send us an email. Can't guarantee you that we'll be able to offer them, but if you have any thoughts or ideas, shoot them our way. So on behalf of COEO, myself, Danielle, and everybody else on the board, thank you so much for joining us. And we hope to see you again in the new year. So take care, everybody. Thanks.